What's poppin'? What's poppin'? What's poppin'? What's poppin'? Hey, I'm back with another video this week. It's been a second since I posted anything. But we out here. This week's story is called Dried Chrysanthemum. And yeah, if there's anything in this story that y'all want to talk about, hit me up in the comment section or DM me on the socials. I will link below. But other than that, let's get into it. Dried chrysanthemum. Sometimes when people speak to me, I find it really difficult to focus on what they say. Words often click like drumsticks to the head. Every syllable hits my ears like a snare. I hold on to the ringing. Some days, it is a song to which I believe I know every word. My mother says I have a problem speaking over people. When I was 10, I had to work really hard to make friends. I stammered often and struggled to swallow the extra syllables. I had one friend, Maya, who I met in my second grade class. She shared her Lunchables with me when the cafeteria slop was difficult to stomach. And when I struggled to breathe or spoke too quickly, she'd put her hand on my right shoulder and stroke the back of my neck with her thumb. She walked with her hands in her pockets, so they were always warm. She'd wait for me to gather my thoughts. At times, that meant meeting me at recess, long after lunchtime ended. Maya always wore a blue hoodie over her uniform shirt. It wasn't allowed, but I once heard her mother yell to her father the reason she needed it. Her father would say, "The other kids know something is wrong with her. No one else is allowed to hide inside the classroom." I'd always assumed she was just cold. Her mother always paused before responding, as if the breath she took would cool the fire in her eyes. It did not. "If the hoodie keeps her safe, then it stays. I don't know why you're so quick to judge. Whatever she has came from you," she'd yell. The hoodie did not seem to keep Maya safe. Once, when we were at recess, a boy named Jacob pushed her to the concrete. He lost a game of jacks, and it cost him all 5 pieces of the forbidden one, an important, though short-lived, set of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. These 5 cards are cause for an irredeemable loss for the opponent of the summoner. I saw him shove her from the opposite side of the monkey bars. I liked to practice my pull-ups there. I ran across the playground and grabbed Jacob's hair. It was a golden blonde and grew down past his ears. I thought it was pretty and reached out to touch it. It turned a muddy brown as I pushed his face into the concrete, my fingers dragging blood and dust across his head. He sang a song about the kids from my neighborhood, and with every punch, his key changed. His song was unpleasant, like a horror score. So, I let him go. I remember the song being much too loud, changing tempo as my smile shone down on him. I don't remember hurting him really, but I still feel my hands shake sometimes, as though my fists have been clenched and only upon release can the blood flow back into them. When I came to, I was cleaning pieces of him from under my nails, flicking the length of them and trying desperately to stop the twitching of my right eye. I often thought of taking those dirty nails and scooping that eye from its socket, like God taking Earth from the galaxy. I was stuck on the colors of the Milky Way when I noticed the other students' eyes, how they all glared at me. I wondered if I'd changed how they saw the world. Jacob was a popular boy, and I had Maya. She did not speak to me, only wrapped her arm around my shoulder and stroked the back of my neck as she walked with me to the principal's office. They called my mother. She wasn't at home to answer, and it had been months since she'd paid for electricity. I'm sure she never got their message. Other students would sometimes shove Maya on the playground or flick her during classes. After my incident with Jacob, she started making eyes at me. These eyes, I think, were meant to tell me, it's okay, or I'm okay. I wondered sometimes if I embarrassed her. Wondered if those soft eyes she made at me might mean, please, don't. Sometimes I felt like a dog. Some people might call that loyalty, but most people don't bite the way that I do. Still, I like to think we kept each other safe whenever we could. Maya helped me breathe easy, and though I heard things I wasn't meant to, my time at her house was a dream compared to my own. The house I lived in was cozy and warm. We left the oven open in the winter, and every room had so many candles lit once the sun went down. Some might call it romantic. I lived there with my sister and her boyfriend whenever he was around. My sister was a tall woman, though what she made up for in size she lacked in dominance. I always thought her weak, letting her man stay out all hours of the night, then crawl into her bed with Seagrams on his breath. Sometimes, when the candles were out and they thought I'd been sleeping, they'd fight. I thought at first that they were making music, grunting and sweating and bleeding. It sounded like blues to me. My sister crept into my room with breakfast after nights where they'd fought, and I thought her a stranger. Her face was often swollen, and her eyes would water like spring rain, as if to cleanse her of the night before. Her tears would make a garden of her face if she could create life. I think that's why they fought, because she couldn't. I'd kiss her chin to thank her for breakfast and to tend to her abandoned heart. I could never look at her eyes. The crimson of her veins bled into the hazel irises we shared. After every fight, though, he'd come back, saying he'd planted a garden for her. I'd noticed her lips, a dahlia pink, had faded to violet. The space around them, a chrysanthemum yellow. She smelled of wilting flowers, of life rotting at the roots. But he always brought fresh ones, and she always forgave him. Whenever she had healed, sometime much later, she'd bring breakfast with a song. She'd sing of love as she'd imagined it. She'd sing of love as though we'd known it. Her songs often stuck with me throughout my school day. Sometimes I'd hum the song she sang as Maya stroked my neck. Maya. Sometimes I think I loved her. I'd squeeze her hand to tell her so. At night, after hours spent on homework exercises that took other students a quarter of the time and half of the effort, I'd write songs of my own. My lyrics stuck like honey some days. I felt them on the tips of my fingers, and when they were good, they'd make my hands shake. My sister says that's because of the vice grip I kept on my pencil. Still, I like to think my lyrics moving. So often they were about warm palms on cold shoulders or large hands on the small of an aching back. I had an itch for that kind of love. And I often thought the shaking was my attempt at reaching for it. In my music, I often created the love that I wanted, and once I had it, I would not let go. Sometimes I'd clench the paper from my journal so hard, I'd fold the lyrics onto themselves like a million paper cranes. When I was younger and in the habit of writing, other people would speak to me, and my lyrics lingered, often too loud for me to make out what they were saying. They'd linger so long that when I tried to respond, I couldn't make out the flavors of the phrases that fell from my lips. At times, it doesn't feel like I choose my words. Some sentences settle like webs with complex construction, and strangers wait for me to make silk. I am often unable to speak. I go through so many synonyms trying to spin gold that I leave most questions unanswered. My sister took me to a doctor after the incident with Jacob. I had injured my hands, though I didn't feel them until long after. The doctor asked me what happened, and I hummed a song about a girl with a blue hoodie and a black bruise. He asked me to clarify, and the tune changed. I swear I said something about how love is brutal, and I have only known it to be so. He asked again, and I looked at my sister. I said nothing. The music faded. I could not hear my own thoughts, but my mind was spinning like a record at the highest tempo. The doctor slowly taped my wrist and gave me some pills that I'd never opened. I had badly damaged my left hand, so I wasn't able to write for months. Maya sat with me most days. I often wanted to clench her hand, but my fingers were unable to bend, and a record scratched every time I tried. Sometimes, though, I still heard music through the silence between us. I wondered if the pain in my hands was what loyalty felt like, what love felt like without control. Once I could feel my hands, I only felt my hands. There was a hard ringing, like an alarm, a wake-up call I couldn't answer. I had been sleeping. I had been numb. For weeks, I only felt my hands against concrete, clutching a pen, clutching a sword, holding on to love with a fist so tight, I'd only feel again upon release. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. I will link my socials. Follow me on the Instagram that I never post on and the Twitter that I talk so loosely on. Filter so loosely. There we go. If you're over 30, you probably won't want to follow me there. But yeah, thanks again for watching, y'all, and I will catch you next week. I'm going out of town, so we'll see how long next week's story is, but I will do my best to get something up for you guys. Thanks for watching.